do this to you, but you know all those childhood memories that you have of the pictures of Joseph and Mary and the little lambs in a thatched roof out there, in the middle of the field somewhere? Yeah, all that's not how it happened. So I'm fixing to give you how Christmas really happened and what the true situation of Christmas was. Joseph had to take Mary and had to travel 90 miles over rough road. Some of you have been coming on Wednesday night and you've been watching the series where it shows them traveling in Israel. And in the olden days, they did not have highways. They had the roads like the Jericho roads. Well, when we looked at that, that's not a road. That is a pathway that over centuries, as people went through, there'd be a rock in it, and they would set that rock aside, and go so far, and they'd set another rock aside, and people did that over hundreds and hundreds of years, till there was a pathway in the mountains. And that's what they were traveling. There was no highways like we have today. So now you're taking a many months pregnant woman on a trip on cobblestone, up into the mountains, across the hills, on a donkey. Doesn't this sound fun? So they traveled to Bethlehem. And it came to pass in those days that a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This census first took place when Quintus was governor of Syria, so all went to be registered, everyone to their own city. And now here's where the story changed. Joseph was going to Bethlehem, his hometown. So wait a minute, what's with Nazareth? That's where they worked. That's where the family had moved to for job and work. There's Bethlehem. This picture of Bethlehem is a modern picture. Back then, Bethlehem was a hamlet. It was a small town. It didn't have all this. Most of the people that were there were all family. They went to stay with family on Christmas. Archaeologist studies can help paint a better picture of what the house in Bethlehem looked like where Mary gave birth. All right, 2 words, and I can't say them very well, so I'll do the best I can. Pandokian, okay? That word means a hotel. Hotels in that time in Israel were only in large cities. They didn't have hotels in small towns. Okay? The other word, katelam. Katelam means guest room. The word that Luke used when he made the story was this, not that. They didn't go to stay at a motel. They went to go stay with family in a guest room. But there was you say, well, that doesn't go along with the story. If you read the original text and what the words were and our English language interpretation of what the words were, okay? But what the word meaning, the image it shows, is a guest room. So, let's read that. The word used in the original text, katelam, is also understood as guest room, not the type of commercial inn used for travelers. For this type of lodging, Luke, who was a very exacting, remember he was a physician, he worked in it, he used exacting Greek words. He wrote in Greek, not in Hebrew. So he used very exacting words. If he had meant the type of lodging, he would have used the padokiim. Okay? Can't say it. Additionally, Bethlehem was Joseph's hometown, and he likely had relatives to stay with. A typical Jewish house that day, go to the picture for me, John, while I read this part. Typical Jewish house that day consisted of an area near the door, often with a dirt floor, where the family's animals were kept at night, so they wouldn't be stolen or preyed upon. And so their body heat would help heat the house. You kept your animals inside, and their body heat kept the house warm. So, in our picture here, down here in this bottom part, would be the animals. Back on the back part of the house back there would be the living quarters. The guest suites would be upstairs. That's the typical Jewish home, the area that they were in, and archaeologists now have gone through and surveyed the area to find out what the living quarters were like in the first century. That's a far cry from a little shed out in the middle of a field with a bunch of little animals around it. The family lived and slept in a raised part of the same room in the back from the door. There was also a guest room either upstairs on the second floor or adjoining a common family room on the lower floor. Typically, the lower floor was near the door and had a manger for food and water for the animals. Okay, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to ask, let me finish this part. Another description that explains how the houses of Bethlehem and the vicinity often had caves in the back of the house where their most prized animals, oxen and beasts of burden, lest they be stolen. Back then, an oxen that can pull a plow would be like you having a Rolls Royce or a Cadillac of some kind. You don't leave that where it can be taken because somebody will take it. The guest room was often in front of the house and the animal shelters in the back. So they found two different styles of house, but both styles of houses, the animals and the manger and all that stuff would be inside the house. For the two major reasons. In that area, in that time, it got cold at night and you wanted the warmth from those animals' bodies in the house, helping to warm that house up. Everybody's looking at me like, boy, you're just destroying my whole Christmas picture here. Now, this depicts a scene showing something that was probably more likely to have happened. The cave in the back of somebody's house. Now, Mary had a guest room upstairs, but now all their relatives had to come back to the town. I imagine it was packed. I imagine there was a lot of people in the house at this time. Mary, would you want to have your baby with a whole bunch of people all around you? Okay? So, instead of subjecting the other guests of the home to the delivery of a child, Mary gave birth in a more private area where the animals were kept and laid Jesus in the feeding trough there. Okay? So a little bit different thought on how this went. But can you imagine after Jesus was born, family was right there. They were in their hometown, where their great-grandmother and great-great-grandmother and all the way back, they all lived in that town. We say, well, why was he all the way in Nazareth, 90 miles away? He was a carpenter. Dad was a carpenter. He traveled where the work was. And it was good work in Nazareth. So that's why they were living there. But now they've come home. So I imagine that after the baby was born, grandma, great-grandma, aunts, uncles, and everybody else are going to want to come by and see the baby, right? So it was that while they were there, the days were completed for her delivery, and she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room in the, what we say? It says inn. Okay? But when you go back to the original Greek language, inn does not mean a motel. It means a guest room. The guest rooms in the house they were staying with were all full. So therefore, she chose to have her baby down in the animal area of the house away from everybody else. And the question is, does it matter whether it was out in the field or in a house or in a motel or whatever that Jesus was born? I said the answer is no. The more important thing is God chose to send his Son to this world to bring us salvation. The King of glory. There's a scene in my mind that every Christmas comes to me. And it was that moment when God turned around and looked at his Son and said, Jesus, it's time. And Jesus stood up and he took the crown off his head. And he took the robe off of his shoulders. And he laid it on his throne. I can imagine he turned around and he hugged his daddy, our God. And he probably said something like this, I'll be back soon. And he walked down those crystal stairs and across that sea of glass. And I can imagine God watching him as he walked away. God knew everything that happened to Jesus while he was on this earth. But the King of Glory probably closed his eyes. And when he opened them up again, he was looking on Mary's face. And he went from being all-powerful in the universe to being a helpless baby laying in a manger, totally dependent on what those around did and cared for him. How much to give up because we humans messed up? How much love was it for him to walk away from all the glory to come down here to be a suffering servant? That's what Christmas is about. Not the presents, not even the traveling and the wonderful seeing the grandkids and all that. It's about the message of the God of glory coming to this earth because he loved us. Father, thank you for all that you teach us, all that you show us, how you open up to us through new discoveries, through the understanding of the Word itself, through digging into the Bible and knowing what the words mean. Words are important. How you can change our vision of how great you are and how much we need to love you, how much we need to give you, how much we need to open to you, especially this time of year. We need to reach out to those who can't help themselves. This is be a time of giving and loving. And we're not just talking about your family. So Father, be with us. Give us the right heart and the right mind so that we show the true spirit of Christmas as we walk every day over these weeks to come. Father, by the time we come together again, Christmas will have happened. Doesn't mean we can't celebrate it as we're going to do. But we love you for what you do. Be with us in this time. This is family time. If there's something going on in your life, if there's somebody that you're burdened over, if there's something in your life going on, as always, as all Baptists do, we have the altar call. And the altar call is important this time of year. Up here the stairs are open. If you need to pour your heart out to your God, your pastor stands here waiting for those who need to come. And we're always open and open to you after the service. But for whatever it This is your time with your Father. If you need to just sit there and pray, that's just fine. But take your family time with your Father, especially in this time of year. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. I want to thank you in this Christmas season for joining us here at Frontenac Baptist Church in Cocoa. I hope you are getting a blessing out of this Advent series that we're doing. And I hope for you a wonderful Christmas that's coming up this coming weekend. And that it's a blessed time for you and the